Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon 101.3 Kata 9. I've been asked many times whether I sport crack or not. I don't consider myself a sport cracker. My focus has always been on techniques for throwing whips in the dungeon, and the goals of these videos is to get you, the viewer, or those that are interested in throwing whips in the dungeon, to get the whips out of your toy bag and into play in the dungeon as quickly as possible. One of the things about learning to throw a single tail is that experience is additive. And in adult learning theory, we acquire new skills quicker by relating the new learning tasks to skills that we already have. Yesterday we reviewed the flogger, and most of you have experience, many hours if not years of throwing a flogger. We demonstrated 4 techniques. We'll go over those very quickly. The first of those was the bow and arrow. The second was over the shoulder. The first dynamic technique was horizontal. And then the final dynamic technique was what I call a forward figure 8, because you're throwing in a rolling figure 8 and it's in a forward direction. So we're going to take all those skills we learned with a flogger and we're going to move those skills over to a Kata 9. As adults, since the time we were kids, we'd play with a toy for 6 months and then get bored and want to pick up a new toy. Our new toy is a Kata 9. The traditional Kata 9 has a flogger style handle and 9 tails, and those tails can be finished in a variety of ways. This particular flogger is finished with what's called a leaf tip. Some floggers are finished with a knot and then a tassel coming off the knot, and then they can be finished in a variety of ways, and sometimes they'll have beads and stones and whatnot finished into the end of the tail. This particular cat that I just picked up has a tapered cane handle. I would consider it a hybrid cat, and it's going to throw a little more like a nunchuck because it has this long handle. So I'll just demo this with the forward figure 8, and you can see I'm throwing it, rolling it off the heel knot and keeping my arc out so my tails stay together. Throws quite a bit different. This hybrid cat has a heavy shot load. It's going to be much heavier than a cat that has no shot load, but again, it's half snake whip, or the thong is like a dog signal down for about 18-20 inches, and then 20 inches of tail. Okay, and we can throw this with the same 4 techniques: bow and arrow, over the shoulder, horizontal, and forward figure 8. If learning is additive, and every minute we spend doing a bow and arrow, coming over our shoulder, doing horizontal techniques, or throwing the forward figure 8, is going to all add to that skill level of working with those 4 techniques in the dungeon. So you'll get from your toy bag to actual play using those techniques much quicker. Okay, this little hybrid cat has less of a shot load. The tails have about a 6mm kangaroo plait, so that's going to be a medium weight cat. And then the lighter weight cat is going to have a very light shot load, 3mm tails, and finished with a tassel. Okay, I have one other toy to show you today before we move on, and that's it's called a martinet. It has flogger-like tails. Usually we'll have fewer tails than a flogger. This one has 6. They could have more than 6, but it has a long handle, and the handle on a martinet balances the tails, whereas in a normal flogger, the weight of the handle's weighted to balance the tails out. So a well-made flogger, the tails are going to be balanced with the handle right behind the pineapple knot, and that's so that you can throw this for hours without wearing your arm out. A well-made cat is also going to have a balanced handle. Balanced behind the pineapple knot so you can throw your cat for hours without wearing your hand out. That concludes what we have today for cats. We reviewed the same 4 techniques we did with floggers. Tomorrow we're going to move on to quirts, and I'll give you a preview. We're going to probably be using the same 4 techniques because the philosophy behind my approach to Singletail is that the same common techniques we use with all of the toys that we play with, all the whips we play with in the dungeon, are going to get us to actually flying that airplane and throwing the Singletail quicker. So the key word today is handle. Every toy has a handle.